Let's talk about Teams. So in this session, we're gonna talk a bit about stereo, audio.
Audio. It's in the roadmap from Microsoft that spatial audio will be brought to front row now. I just saw the other day that spatial audio is available in my Teams application. So
on your desk.
On your desk, right?
Yeah.
So
try start explaining what it is.
Spatial audio is immersive audio. So you will try to place audio in a XYZ direction, basically. Maybe just XY in this scenario because it's a stereo headset, and it's a stereo speaker environment we're gonna have it in the meeting room. But the reason behind it is because when you always have the audio coming from the same side, you will be it will just be a constant humming in a sense, right? So you will not be focusing on it. But if you try to change it to somewhere else, that the speaker is just moving around, then you will hear it differently and you'll be more engaged in the meeting, etc. So it's actually to make the meetings more exciting and you will be more present, and it's something good for the meeting itself.
I think it will also be like that. Normally, when we talk to a person, we get the audio from the speaker.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we are trying to do again on front row, since that we have all the persons down in the bottom of the screen, the camera nearby, so we look into each other's eyes. But then again, if we have someone speaking over here and we hear the audio from the ceiling, then our brain doesn't really understand it correctly, or we get more tired when working like that. So if we have the audio from the person speaking, that would make more sense for our brain.
Yes, it's all about triggering the brain to think we are more in-person meeting, and due to Teams rolling out so fast and everybody was sitting at home with COVID, we need to be more open to people working hybrid. And when we're working hybrid, we're missing this feeling that the person is present in the room. The spatial audio will actually do something for it, together with the front row, because I don't have a feeling that if you're not running front row, you will have the audio coming from different places, because it doesn't make sense. But when you have the front row layout, it will totally make sense for you.
Yeah.
So you can also say that it's kind of a way to engage participant in the meeting as well, to get them more active and focused on the meeting itself.
We all know if you go to a cinema and you hear something in Dolby Atmos 7.1 surround sound, etc., and you hear the audio coming from the back and from the side and the ceiling and everything, there's a thought about moving the audio around you. But again, we have talked about in the early videos about how we will change the meeting environment, the furnitures in the meeting room. I'm pretty sure we will see that more and more coming when the spatial audio is enabled in front row as well. Because when you're sitting in front of it, you will have the eye level with the person. You will hear the person speaking from right or left or center. It just makes much more sense for you.
Yeah.
Speaking about front row,
can
you tell us a little more about any ideas behind front row? What it is? And,
I think there's, if you would like to read more about it, Microsoft actually some fantastic blogs about it where they talk about front row. And front row is basically when we're sitting here together, I would love to look you both in the eyes and have a conversation pointing at whoever I'm speaking with. And in the front row, you will see that everybody's eyes is nearly at the same level. And this is that's the meaning behind it, because then you'll be able to focus on the persons with the right height. And I'm pretty sure that we will see some guidelines from Microsoft at some point where we need to place the screen in which height, etc., because then you will look at the other person in the eye if you have this type of table, etc. And it just makes much more sense to it, and you'll be present, and I'm pretty sure the meetings will actually be shorter during this because you will be more focused and you will be more, the meeting will be over more quickly.
So optimize.
It will be optimized because you will not be laid back and dull and not looking another person in the eyes. It will be more present and engaged in this meeting. So.
Yeah, I think one from is that when you sit in a front row room, then you would be able to look the others in the eyes, but the remote participant will actually also feels like that you're looking at them because we place the camera so close to the people sitting there. So, I mean, and that's probably one of the things where it is a major benefit on the Teams Room's front row, especially in 21:9, because if you have a dual screen, you would always look either at the persons or at the presentation, and you will always be off.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I tend to feel that when you look at a camera, it's like, doesn't really make that much sense or difference if I look a bit up or a bit down, but if I look to the side, then people are feeling that I don't really look at them, I don't really pay attention to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what we also is seeing is Microsoft is gonna change the background of the persons in the front row, so it will be all the same. Yeah. So it will be a cutout of the person. It will be a more natural thing, so you don't have all these mixtures behind. You will also at some point see the avatars down here as well. I think there will be more and more people using the avatars in the front row as well. Yeah. And again, it's just something that adds on to the meeting rooms spaces, and we have to remember that the new generations that's coming into the workforce, right? They will be more in that environment, and I really think you need to make some kind of this. Microsoft is calling it signature rooms, but I actually think it would be more like a standard room in 1 or 2 years from now.
And especially when you see some of the benefits where you have the chat modules, you have to raise your hands, and whatever that's built on of those functions, they're just awesome.
Because it could also be that when somebody is speaking, right, and you just have a quick question, but you will not interrupt and raise hands. No, you can just write it in the chat, and he will
focus on the right.
The person will be able to answer right away, right? So it's.
Yeah, that's true. So that was one of the updates. I think it was in March version where you also added that to both Windows, but also on Android. Yeah. So front row on Android as well. We got it on Windows for quite a while. Yeah. But we have the chat function in the right-hand side, but now we also have it in gallery mode, where you can add the chat at the same time. So it's
that's very a nice add-up, especially when you're sitting in the meeting rooms and you don't have your PC in front of you. You can see somebody's chatting behind and there's no idea what's going on. So
it was actually quite weird. We had it in the Skype room system where we had the chat function. Then we come to Teams rooms. And it was like nobody's chatting in the meetings. And then COVID hit, and now we're chatting quite a lot during the meetings. Definitely. So I think also when you said this about that we are removing the background, I think there's a story behind that. So one of the things that when we put people down in front row, we still have whatever background that they have, and that can make some virtual noise, I would say. So that can be distracting. So when Microsoft is then removing the background and make it all black, then we would have like our brain would be more calm and focused on the meeting instead of just whatever going on in the background.
Exactly.
Somebody's walking by.
Definitely. I think one of the things that I actually experienced when I was at Microsoft a few months back in the Hive, where they built their standard, is that they work with acoustic panels as well. Yeah. But they placed dark acoustic panels around the screen.
Yeah, I have seen that as well.
And that was actually quite nice because, first of all, it will, of course, help with the acoustic, but it also calmed the picture down instead of having a screen and then white around it or another color. And that having that dark gray or black color really made me focus on the screen instead of everything around it.
But the thing is, I actually see more and more that the interior designers, they also think about how we're gonna approach the new workspace and how we're gonna make the layouts of the office and coming back
size of tables and so on.
But I also see that there's a gap between technology and them, and because they don't know the customer enough about the IT department, which way are you going to go? Are you going to go with this equipment or this equipment? But you sometimes need to actually drag in the interior designers into this because, as you mentioned, have a totally black or matte black.
Something calms you down and make you again. It's all about focusing in the meeting, optimizing, and make it as short and productive as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also think that often the budget are in two different departments.
So facility versus IT. That's always.
So that's another thing. But I definitely think that even though we are not always talking with the right people about how to equip the meeting room, we should still go on and explain about it because it still have a major impact on the whole meeting experience.
Exactly, voice quality, all that. I mean, that's really a...
And as we see now that many of the cameras have IntelliFrames and Microsoft have the cloud... what's it called?
IntelliFrame?
IntelliFrame is the name in the cloud, right? So where you crop out the people. And they will be from a meeting room. They will be present in the other end of the. If you have a meeting to another meeting room, then they will be present in the bottom as well. Right? So you have a focus on whoever's speaking. And if you're doing like this and having a traditional way of having a meeting room, the camera will face you from the side, right? So turning the table around will actually make a lot of sense for the future.
Another thing that I saw at the High was that they had like a normal meeting table in front of the screen with around 4 or 5 people. And then in the back they had a higher table. So actually the camera was able to capture both the people at the low meeting table and also at the high meeting table. And it made really good sense because then the people in the back was more like relaxed, I wouldn't say that not part of the meeting, but they didn't have that active a part of the meeting. And that was like more listening, but also to help the people that are not really feeling good about sitting down for a meeting for an hour or two. They could easily stand up, and it didn't really make that big a difference on the height of the head.
I've recently designed a lot of rooms where it's a banana shaped, but standing tables. But in front of it, there was some couches.
So you can sit.
You can choose whatever you want, and then the cameras today will be able to actually cover most of it. It depends on the room size, right? So
and Microsoft also told that they were doing some kind of executive meeting room similar. So normal meeting table, but then instead of a high table in the back, it was like more like couches or nice and comfy chairs. So a lot of things going on in the meeting space and things you need to be thoughtful about. And I also see the time is ticking.
I do the same.
So I think we're gonna wrap this on. So thanks a lot for watching Let's Talk About Teams, and we're gonna be back with even more short videos.